Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews Saturday Conversation Show, an interview series where I talk to entertainment personalities, content creators, and filmmakers about their work and love of film. Today's guest is Sean Chandler, movie reviewer and content creator whose YouTube channel, Sean Chandler Talks About, has become one of the premier pop culture channels on YouTube with weekly reviews, rankings, and commentary on all things movie and TV. I'm glad to say talking to me right now is Mr. Sean Chandler himself. Sean, how are you?
Good. I mean, you just told me I'm one of the premier YouTube channels in the space. I'll take it.
Oh man, I love your work and I have been a big fan of your work for quite a long time. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to have you on this show because the Saturday Conversation series was meant to talk to people just like yourself. So we can just dive into not only what it is about movies that you love, but what it is that makes us so crazy to want to just talk about it and gab on about it all the time on
Yeah.
YouTube and all the nonsense that comes with it. I wanted to go back though to a young Sean Chandler. A Sean Chandler, for what I understood, first mo movie memory, if not first memory, was watching Top Gun with his family and then having to had the love scene muted from his parents and not knowing why until many years later. Is this have I got my research correct here?
Pretty well. I mean, I don't, what was that's one of those early ones. They're all kind of a jumble of your, childhood. You don't have the timeline of when it happened, but one of them was getting freaked out by Star Trek 4, the most terrifying movie I've ever seen, which if you've seen the movie, it's not a scary movie at all, but it freaked me out. And then yeah, Top Gun was another one of those just early blend together memories of just watching that movie and not knowing why my parents kicked me out of the film whenever Take My Breath Away started playing. It was like, go out to the hallway. And, we had the soundtrack on vinyl. And so I listened to the record all the time and knew every word to every song. But for whatever reason, whenever that song started playing on the movie, hey, get out of here.
Star Trek 4, is that the one with the whales where they go to Earth?
It is the one with the whales, the most lighthearted, the most fun, the most accessible, the one that if you're trying to say that one's terrifying, it is the one with the least emotional stakes, but it starts off with this probe thing flying through space that looks like a big, I don't know, sausage that's gone bad flying through space, and there's like this screeching sound related to it, and the starships just kind of lose their power when it flies by. But it's
Hmm.
not like I don't even know. Like it's one of those things where you try and figure out like why when I was a child did this freak me out so bad. I've shown the sequence to my 6-year-old who is freaked out by a lot of things and is very affected by music. She's fine. She can watch the
Hmm.
intro to Star Trek 4, but whatever reason when I was a kid, like I got freaked out by the probe. Like the movie's a fish out of water comedy. Like it's famous for being the one with the whales. Like you describe a Star Trek movie as the one with the whales. It's literally what you said because it's just this silly Save the Whales movie that's really, really fun. But we're all different. We're all affected by things at different times. And so that of movies that have freaked me out, Star Trek 4 is one of the movies that has freaked me out the most in my life.
It's kind of odd sometimes how certain movies have that effect on us. I think to this day, Never Ending Story still has a quite an effect on me
Oh
as well when I
yeah.
was a kid. Yeah. So I still got a thing with dogs. I don't know what it is because of the wolf kind of like what's the name? Was it Darkness or the Nothing? The Nothing, I think the creature was called in Never Ending Story. I'm not sure. But yeah,
There's
to
the
this
nothing, and the second one is the emptiness. I think is what
there we go.
if I'm recalling correctly.
Something you and I have in common is that we have very vivid memories of seeing the 1989 Batman in
Okay, yep, that
cinemas.
makes. So we're in that age range. Like that was such a pivotal movie. Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, like I was a Batman guy, but the only really Batman we kind of had, especially here in Australia, was the TV show, the Adam West show.
Hmm.
So when that one came out, the 1989 one, it was like a totally different kind of just movie experience because, and I say this to my kids all the time. I got two boys myself, aged 12 and 9. And I say to them all the time, I go, you guys don't know how lucky you have it, where all your favorite characters and such, they make a movie a month and it's high
Hmm.
quality stuff. Back in my day, we can maybe get one every 2 years, maybe. And even then, it could
Hmm.
be dubious in quality. And Batman was one of those movies where it's like, wow, they can do this. They can actually bring it to the screen
Yeah.
and make it, and not only that, make it look different as well. So, Batman 1989, that was your, was Batman 1989 your first movie experience? Or was the Star Trek 5 in where you guys had to wait at the balcony because they had to sell 20 tickets. Was that your first movie experience?
I don't know the order of them. Neither one of those was the first movie experience, but they're the first memories I start to have. They're both that summer '89. I know I saw Oliver and Company, I guess the
Mm,
year before, but that's like it's one of those ones where I know that happened, but I don't have kind of those memories of it. That summer, the first summer of fandom was Batman '89. And so like I mean I've got I can see my pictures of or my binder of my cards right over there, the fandom of seeing all of that. But then like a vivid specific memory where there's a story attached to it was Star Trek V. But I don't remember which one came first because it was a I imagine I could probably look that up pretty easily and ask my mom and sister about travel plans for that summer. But um that's when you start having actual images in my head was that summer '89. But and it's been tricky. That's a fun story with the Star Trek V because it's not just a terrible movie, like it's infamously the worst Star Trek movie, followed up the one
mm,
with Star Trek 4, the one with the whales, that's regarded as one of the best and most accessible, and then Star Trek 5 is one of the worst. And it's one of my first memories of going to the theater. And like right here in my office in front of me, I have a picture with me and Captain Kirk himself, William Shatner. Like that's
mm-hmm.
how much Star Trek means to me. Um, and I've got two of these little Star Trek bobbleheads right here on my desk that I stare at while I'm shooting. That's Star Trek to me. And some of that goes back to those on ramps for loving movies, loving fandom. When I start having memories, it's a comic book movie and it's Star Trek. Like
Yeah.
that's the foundation right there. But with the Star Trek 5, it's so specific. It was the first time I'd ever been to a theater that had a balcony. And there was that little story, something I've never experienced any other point in time in my life. We won't show the movie if we don't sell 20 tickets to the film. And so it has that specificity where you think the Batman memory is less defined because it was going to some theater that I probably went to 50 times in my childhood and saw it. But there's this one, I'm in some middle of nowhere theater between Texas and California with a balcony and you had to sell 20 tickets and just the way memories are formed, the more specificity, the more it's a story that you can share, the easier it is for your brain to remember it.
My
I
first
love that stuff.
my first movie experience was Crocodile Dundee Part 2, I think it
Okay,
was.
yeah, yep,
So
yep,
Australian, right? So Australian.
right, right.
And
I
and
wasn't gonna
then
say that. I'm glad you did.
no, of course, go ahead. And then the other one followed right after was Short Circuit. Watched that in the theaters, one of
hmm
my first movies at the theaters as well. And while we're
hmm
sharing props, I got
Short
this
Circuit one or two? Was it one or two for
one,
Short Circuit? First,
one.
okay.
So this Batmobile that I got
Uh-huh.
here, this I
Yeah.
got this from my sister back in or early 90s, because this is the Batman Returns Batman, the one where you pop
With
the thing,
the pod. Yeah.
the
Okay.
pop, and
Gotcha. I was
it
wondering.
turns to the into the thing. And you might like this as well if I can find it. Ah, yeah. The Batman
Oh,
Returns
nice. Yeah.
novelization as well.
Yeah, I was running over to grab my card, so I've got the complete set of Batman
Yep.
'89, complete set, and then also Batman Returns. So your car is right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you move into the back, I also have these Marvel card trading cards as well, but those are don't tie into the theme as well. But
I got the Batman Returns, and I got the original Ninja Turtles 1990 cards, the ones that
uh-huh.
used to come with a stick of gum. And to this day, I think I can still
Yep.
smell the residue of the gunpowder on that stuff. That stuff
Yeah.
doesn't go away at all. But that stuff, I love that stuff, and I think that's the kind of the things that, especially our generation, like I said, it was so rare to come across movies like that. It's not like today where it's like two a month or what have you. It
Yeah.
sticks with us because these are events. Like movies were such a big event kind of
Right.
thing, and it sticks with. And I think it's maybe psychologically speaking, that's kind of like the core of the stuff that really just still
Mhm.
is within us and drives us to still want to talk these movies. I don't know about you, but sometimes it feels like I'm still trying to chase that kind of like that
Right.
nostalgic high that came with watching those movies in the first place. And
Yeah.
sometimes I might still get it, Like when Force Awakens came out, there's a bit of that there as well in
Hmm.
other films as well. But I think it's something that's definitely that's something that drives us, just trying to find
At
that
least
feeling again.
you mentioned Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, another early memory, that 1990 film. And that's when I remember the theater because it's on the opposite end of town. I've lived in
Mm,
Austin since I was 7 years old, but always on the very north side of all the suburbs on the north. And this theater is way south. So it's 30, 40 miles away from where I live. And so it was a little bit of an adventure to get there. So then it became that mark in my brain of this part of town is where I saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
yeah,
And there's just so many things that you just modern day, you know, teenagers, even people in their 20s now, people in their early 30s, if you're 10 years younger than us, you don't understand
yeah,
that there was so little content in the nerd space that was done right up until about the year 2000. It was very uncommon. And so, like, as a little random little factoid, or little thing for the, they put out a Captain America movie in 1990. It's generally not
yeah.
regarded as very good. It's from Albert Payan, who did Jean-Claude Van Damme's Cyborg, and he did Kickboxer 2. So he did these schlocky B movies, and he did a Captain America film, and it's just horribly mocked. Like, he on the suit, they didn't cut out for his ears; they put rubber ears in the mask. So it's just
That's
these
right.
choices that's, like, in retrospect, just seem comically hilarious. So over the last couple weeks, the wife of the director, and he passed away a couple years ago, recently discovered the director's cut of the film. So for purists, it's like, oh, that's cool. We can see the director's cut. And so there's been this kind of revived discussion about the film. And I saw a number of people like, why would you want a director's cut? It's one of the worst movies of all time. It's garbage. And then they list off all these ways that they pick on it. For me, until I was in high school and Blade came out, that was the only Marvel movie I had. It
Mm,
was the only one. And Blade, it's a Marvel movie, but it's not a Marvel movie. Like, it's an action movie. It's an awesome action movie. I love Blade 1 and 2. I actually kind of love Blade Trinity, but it's a bad kind of movie. It's a bad movie
mm.
that I love. But, like, it's not Marvel the same way Captain America and Spider-Man and X-Men are Marvel. So the first real Marvel movie besides Captain America that I had was X-Men after I graduated high school. And
Mm.
when you put that into perspective, I have this great fondness for objectively what is not a very good Captain America movie. That it's literally the film that I have. I could, because of those rumors. I actually, well, grab it. Um, it's like what I've been watching this last week as I go to bed is the
Mm.
1990 film, because it's just nostalgia of, I can have a lot of fun for a movie. And total random factoid, Captain America, it is played by Matt Salinger, the son of J.D. Salinger, the writer of Catcher in the Rye, which is one of my favorite totally random pieces of trivia, that, like, the writer of Catcher in the Rye, his son played Captain America. But, like, people pick on the film for all these things about it, but it came out 34 years ago. It was, I think, the third Marvel movie ever produced, ever. They were figuring it out. And when you put it in those terms, it's actually a pretty good adaptation. Like, cinematically, there's issues, and story, there's issues, but it's a pretty good adaptation of trying to just translate it to film at the time in light of what they were building off of.
Yeah.
And that I think that just radically changes how you perceive some of these films, that you have to figure out how to take something from a comic book that's inherently cartoonish and bring it into live action in a way that makes sense and is believable. And that, like, there were so few examples in the year 1990. This year alone, we've had 8 theatrically released comic book movies, or 7 or 8 depending on who define terms. Theatrical, and this was a bad year for comic
Mm.
book movies. A
Big
bad
time.
year has 8 of them.
Mm.
And that's, like, it just changes your perspective so much on some of these early films and their flaws and the quirks that they have and everything like that.
I had a big affection for also the Bill Bixby Hulk stuff as well.
Yep. Hmm.
I remember there was a TV movie where it was Hulk versus Thor, and it's just
Yep.
it's as bad as you imagine it to be, but
Yeah.
it's my bad. I take that to
Right.
heart, that movie,
Right.
so and I understand what you mean by the Captain America film, because Captain America was my favorite hero growing up. I still have all the comic books when I was a kid.
Mhm.
And so that movie, especially that 991, I rented that, or I think I was the only person who probably rented it at my local video store. So I know exactly what you mean by that film. I want to
Yeah, I recorded off of premium television or whatever, so I
yeah,
had a copy of it at home. So, like, I might be one of the people on the earth that has watched that film the most times because it's the only one that, like, I remember being at a video store and seeing like the poster. I was like, oh, there's a Captain America movie coming out, and then it never came out. And I
yeah.
was like, what happened with that? And then years later, you realize understanding film distribution and some things go direct to video or they're only released in other markets and went, oh. And like I used to read Wizard magazine,
Yes. Yeah.
and they ran a whole section on a Fantastic Four movie. And I like remember I had the magazine, it was like, there's Doctor Doom. Oh, they're gonna do a Fantastic Four movie. And then it never came out. And 10, 15 years later with the internet, you discover, oh, that was like this cynical move where they made the film just to keep the rights. That's crazy. And then
Mhm.
you can find it now by through via bootleg, but all that fascinating stuff of the world of what comic book movies were at the time and the how compared to now where we know everything about a movie way before it comes out. And before it was like you might read a magazine and they'll tell you something's coming out and the movie may never come out. Like it's just a totally different era.
It really is, but a fun era. I want to fast
Mhm,
forward to 1998. We first
mhm,
tipped up, put your toes into going online and talking about films. AOL, had a few fan pages. There was a Star Wars fan page you started with. Then you had a Jackie Chan web page after that. From what I understand, you could hit like tap on different. There's a
mhm,
image of Jackie Chan in funny pose. You
mhm.
tap different parts of his body, take it to a different review and such. So when you started doing
Oh,
that stuff, was
oh
this
no no
just a
no
way
no no
to
not
go ahead?
not a different review. You discover in which movie he hurt that body part.
Ah, very good, very good. I imagine
Even
there will be a lot of
cornier.
I imagine there'll be a lot of clicking to do there, considering the stunts that he did.
Click on his head. He cracked his skull open, making armor of God. That sort of thing. Broke his foot, making rumble in the Bronx.
When you do those pages, was that just a way for you to try to really kind of express your love for these movies? It's just like, I got this stuff inside me. I want to put it out there where people are talking about their films. The internet's here. Let me just see what this is like. I want to try to put some stuff out there and have fun with it. Was that pretty much the precipice for wanting to do something like that?
I've just always been kind of designed in a way that I want something to exist because I was here today on the earth. Because
Hmm.
I was on the earth, there's a new thing that exists. And I wouldn't put it in that language back in the day, but I just always was someone that created things. And so whether that was silly music projects, um, Christmas is around the corner. So I did. Do you have Legacy Box where you live? Do you know what that
We
is?
don't. No, no, we do not. No.
So it's essentially a company where you put your old VHS tapes or whatever, and you mail it into a company and they digitize it for you.
Right.
And so I sent in 10 of my old home movie tapes to digitize it so I can like on Christmas morning be like, here, mom, here's a USB drive. And for the first time in 20 years, she hears her mother's voice. So that's what
Hmm.
was kind of what I'm working towards on it. But on it, when I did this, I discovered there's a whole section of all these old movies that I made with my friends. It's just they're terrible. I mean, shockingly terrible home movies of me making action films with my friends. And I just always did that. It was always like, let's film this, let's record some music. And so when I discovered you can make movie web pages, wait, with members.aol.com, you can make your own free web page. Wait, with GeoCities, what is this? All these, and you can make your own web page, and these are the tools they have. So that it was just one more way to just create a thing that I was interested in. Just always, I'm always like that. And all these little factoids. I've always liked to like tell people the thing that I learned. Randomly telling you, hey, this is the son of J.D. Salinger. That element of me was there in the 90s. So then I'm reading the internet and I discover that there are scenes in Star Wars that weren't in the movie. There were
Mm.
deleted scenes. Now, nowadays, that everybody because of DVDs and YouTube, that everybody knows that. But before DVDs, that was kind of a novel concept. Like we didn't. That was not something that was just part of the common vernacular. That there's extra scenes for movies that were deleted. And so I found out in Return of the Jedi there was like a sandstorm, and I think some of this, I guess it must have been. some of this might have predated 98 because in 97 is when the Star Wars special editions came out. And I think that Star Wars webpage might have been before that, or that might have been kind of the thing that started some of this was I was discovering, wait, Jabba the Hutt was originally in Star Wars? So I don't remember the exact timeline on it, but I was like, I'll put up a webpage that just kind of talks about this. And then in that same window of time, there was also a Christian music webpage that was all, it was all
Hmm.
the same members.aol. They linked to each other and everything like that. But it was just, I discovered a thing I liked and I wanted to create a thing like that thing. And which was essentially jump forward 20 years and I start Sean Chandler talks about it was just a more mature version of that. Same exact thing. I like that thing. I like to talk about that thing. I like to create things. Ta-da!
Very good. It's a good combination of things to put together, and here we are now, exactly right. I want to move on now to a game I like to play called Choose Between Two. So I'm going to throw some options your
Okay.
way. You got to choose between the two and just to dive in a little bit on the answer there. I think I know the answer to this one just in our conversation so far, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I feel like Star Wars shines on the big screen and Star Trek shines on television.
Hmm.
Now, the last 10 years have complicated that quite a bit, or the last little bit has complicated that a little bit because Star Wars has started to transition in and they don't put out movies anymore, but they're putting out TV shows and some of them are pretty good. And there's things that complicate this idea. But, and you know, I adore the original Trek, Star Trek movies. And so it's not fully clean, but the inherent nature of Star Trek as sci-fi at its in its purest form was allegorical storytelling. So these fun episodic adventures, like people ask all the time, if I watch Star Trek, do I need to start at the first episode? If I start at Next Generation, do I have to start at the first episode? The answer is please don't.
Hmm.
Don't watch Encounter at Farpoint if you watch Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'll recommend, episode 50 is the first episode you watch because they're standalone stories that are all fun little adventures. And I think that's what Star Trek does great. And the only reason the Star Trek movies worked great is because they were building off of this foundation of you loved the characters. So then you close out their journey with these more epic tales that are more cinematic. And with that time gap, you could pull that off in a way that I don't think worked as well for Next Generation. It only really worked on one of the Next Generation movies on its same level. And then like the J.J. Abrams movies, that was essentially him turning Star Trek into Star Wars. And
Yeah.
I think there's some enjoyment there. Like in particular, 2009, there's a lot of enjoyment there. But I've heard someone describe they turned Captain Kirk into Maverick from Top Gun, and then
Hmm.
they give it the pacing of Star Wars, and that's what Star Trek 2009 is. And it's a fun piece of entertainment because I like the genre. I don't think it's great Star Trek though. And so Star Trek shines on television when it does done right, and Star Wars because it's very much intentionally from the beginning. It's the hero's journey. It's timeless mythology translated into this combination of sci-fi and fantasy with its own kind of world building. It's designed to be at its best about the rise and fall of empires. There is, in multiple senses, political aspects to it, but when done right, it's interwoven into the story. And it's big epic stuff that lends itself to one movie every 3 years that is huge and pulls these timeless and broadly accessible themes. And so I think making me choose between the two of them, it's tough because I we did this before. Who do we have right here? We've got Captain
Hmm.
Kirk. What do we have on the other side? We have a Star Wars poster. So
Hmm.
you are asking me to choose between my left side and my right side. Um, does my cheating answer count, or do I have to pick between the two?
We'll let the cheating answer stick.
So,
Next
and then
one.
you have Rocky behind you, and I have
Yeah.
Rocky right here is the other one right here
Yeah.
next to me. And you have Ghostbusters behind you, and I have a Ghostbuster. And this is a 1980s Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. That has stood the test of time.
Yeah, it's funny how some of the toys back in the day can stand the test of time more than the ones I buy for my kids these days would break like after 1 week. Like the 1980s action toys are kind of like the Volvos of the the pop culture world. Next one.
My
Go ahead.
all of my toys. I never got cleaning my office because I'm making a mess. Oh, that didn't work at all. I never got rid of any of my toys, so they're all at my mom's house. And
Hmm.
the only thing that's broken is the rubber band in my GI Joes. So the rubber
Oh, right.
band rots over time, but you can go buy a replacement one. So if I wanted to, you could just unscrew the screw, throw a new rubber band in there, and my GI Joes would still be good. But all those toys, they're still intact at my mom's house. And whenever my kids, and I guess now my son's probably too old to play with them, but that's what he would do. He's go over to my mom's house and play with my toys. And you start thinking, we're getting 10, 15 years away from his kid, their kids
Mm,
playing with my toys, which is just really wild to think about.
it is. Next one, Steven Spielberg or James Cameron?
Spielberg on the basis of he's just far more prolific.
Hmm.
If James Cameron had maintained the output level that he had from 1984 to 1997, from then until today, and had the versatility, the diversity that Spielberg had, man, we've got a who knows where I'm landing on this one. But James Cameron had this tremendous 13-year run of just banger after banger, like these are top 10 favorite films of all time everything he put out. And then in the last almost 30 years, he's put out two movies. And I
Yeah.
think they're his two weakest movies. They're tremendous accomplishments. I think they are very good, but I think they're his two least interesting films on a story level. And so for that reason alone, it just Spielberg started 10 years before him and
Hmm.
kept being prolific for 25 years after him.
Yeah.
And when you're Spielberg and you have 1993 and you put out Schindler's List and Jurassic Park in the same year, and a few years later you put out Saving Private Ryan, and that was 20 years into his career. He'd already been making A-plus movies for 20 years when 93 comes around.
Yeah.
And then jump forward 10 years and he's still doing Minority Report and all these other films that just I I don't know who could beat that for me of just
Yeah.
and I did a video where it's like what are the someone asked me a question like this and I list off like eight movies Spielberg movies off the top of my head that are from different categories that are the best, and the comments were like, how did you forget this movie, how did you forget this movie, how did you forget this movie, how did you forget this movie? And you have like, I'm not particularly big on Minority Report. I think it's a great movie, but I think he just has 10 or 15 movies that are better than that great movie. And
Yeah.
when you go, James Cameron hasn't even made 10 movies. You just right there, you kind of go, I think you have to go Spielberg because he just was so good for so long. And it feels like his career's dwindling down right now. But I had Fablemans in my top five 2 years ago. That's when
Hmm.
he's winding down. He's just only putting out movies that are fantastic, but they're not as broadly accessible.
Yeah.
Sure, you're in your late 70s and you're still just making great movies for cinephiles. I'll take it. You literally had 35 years where you were cranking out blockbusters that were actually great and changed cinema for 35 years. Am I supposed to give quick answers on these?
No, no, no. You're doing great. I love it. Next one, CGI or practical effects? What would you rather see in a movie when you're watching a film?
I mean, of course, the holistic answer, if you don't have to pick, is that uh, a great blend of the two is the best. Thus, Jurassic Park came out over 30 years ago and looks better than most movies that come out today because that I mean, I'm these days I'm significantly more excited by anything practical than CGI because CGI is so overdone
Hmm.
that the novelty of the spectacle that CGI allows has diminished. And so now it's reverted backwards. The novelty of someone actually going practical with the limitations of that, that's more exciting to me. That's more interesting to me when you have a real thing, a real stunt that has a thrill to it that CGI just doesn't have anymore where that yeah, it's my inclination is just to say practical, and even watching older movies that even when there's cheesiness in the costumes or the effects or whatever, there's a novelty to it. Like rewatching the Crow from 30 years ago recently
Mm.
and watched some of the behind the scenes stuff. And they're talking about how the city is a model in a table and you're flying through this that kind of winds through it. And there's something just off about the whole thing, but that's exactly what makes it interesting. That
Yeah.
you know that they're not flying through a real city, but it has such a distinct, unique look to it because it is this model and that gives it this dream quality that pops in a way that all of these technically better CGI cities that we fly through in movies all the time, they're boring, they're forgettable, they lack that kind of artistic flair or whatever that you get when you're looking at a real thing that I don't know. So I just maybe if sometimes I think if you grew up on it, your brain's wired for practical and good CGI, you appreciate it, but overuse of CGI, it's like it's an advanced cartoon.
Yes, and there's a weightlessness to it. It's empty pixels. There's no grounding to it as well, without that
Yeah.
practical has that kind of thing to it.
And
Um,
that's, the classic example of when you do CGI right. Like there's tons of CGI in Top Gun Maverick, but you
mm,
don't see any of it because they put people in jets and they flew real jets, and then they use CGI to remove a cloud or something,
mm,
things like that. So then they're adding a bridge or something like that. So the thing that you're seeing is a real jet really spinning, a real face being pulled backwards. All that really happened, and you're augmenting it with something that's not interesting, a bridge or a tree or something like that. So it feels a little bit more exciting. There's a stunt in um, Baby Driver that a real car drove and did this skid maneuver, and it looks awesome where it's driving behind by dumpsters and cars and stuff, and you realize afterwards that they added the dumpster with CGI.
mm,
But the reason it feels real and it's weighty is because the car really did that. And
mm,
so they added a thing later on, but they really did a stunt. And so it had, yeah, like you said, weightiness to it. It feels like you're seeing a real thing. And as soon as you have a human in front of a green screen and they're blowing a fan in their face, or you're watching a fully CGI, the a classic example, the third act of Black Widow,
mm,
in a movie that has some practical stunts and action that's really cool. And then the final action in the movie is they're on a carrier jet that explodes and they're falling through the sky, having a sword fight, running on debris and flipping all around. And it's like, there's nothing anchored in reality in this. This is a
yeah,
video game fight. Like
yeah,
you lost me with all of this. Just it's too over the top, and that desire to out spectacle everything else, and so that push to make crank everything up to 11 instead of having interesting, great choreography that's not as spectacular, but it's really well done. They just keep going CGI and bigger. They're falling from the sky and they're swinging their swords and they smash through a wall and it explodes and then they land on this thing. It swoops all around. It's like, I would have found it much more interesting if you just had an awesome choreographed fight between Taskmaster and two Black Widows.
yeah.
Like two top level martial artists battling against someone that instantly learns their maneuvers. So you have top choreography combined with let's be smart about how do we outthink this person? How do we teach them how we fight, but it's wrong. And so they try and mimic what we were doing, and therefore we can defeat them. You do something like, I mean, I'm just spitballing here and I go, wow, that's a far more interesting and unique thing than just spectacle CGI overload. So
Last
practical.
one. Last one. You're at the cinema. What's your go-to snack? Popcorn or candy?
Popcorn all day, every day.
How do you like your
I'm
popcorn?
just a buttery.
Mm,
I guess maybe not too buttery, but like definitely want butter and all. If I don't do this enough, but if I could have two containers and like pour half of it over here, butter
hmm
it, shake, 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 butter this one over here, shake, 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 put it on top, butter the like light, proper butter appropriately throughout all of it. It's just tough when you can't normally do that, so you end up like soaking the top and the bottom as dry as can be. But I don't like just as a popcorn, you can get so much more of it. So I want something that I can just do this the whole movie and snack a little bit the whole movie. And you get a little box of candy that costs $20. And so I'm like, I'm eating one candy every 5 minutes. And that's not satisfying as opposed to like doing this for a whole movie with a whole gigantic tub of popcorn. And then I can take it home and sit there with my dogs and eat the popcorn together. So popcorn all the time. But I like candy too. So just it's that being able to just keep going is the maybe the habitual side to it, the human behavior like side to it that just I want to be able to do that the whole movie.
The Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you'll love. I want to talk about your time on YouTube. So, from what I understand, 2010 was kind of like you kind of dabbled into doing some type of reviews here and there, not really consistent with it, one review here and there. It wasn't to say until maybe 2016 when you did a review of the Paul Feig Ghostbusters
Mhm.
all-female reboot. You're on a date night with your wife. You're like, hey, I'm going to do a video about this. Funny enough, my first review I've ever written for my website was back in 2006, and that was after my first date with my now
Mhm.
wife, The Departed. So
Mhm.
shout out to date nights. So when it came to that Ghostbusters review and the reception you got for it and everything else, what was it about that review at that time that really kind of said to you, this is something that if I put some more work into it, if I was consistent with it, I could really got something here that I can move forward with.
So, grander context is that I believe it was May 2013 was my first movie review. It was Star Trek Into Darkness. Star
Hmm.
Trek is a major recurring theme in all of this. So
Yep.
Star Trek Into Darkness, and it like literally at I think it was in the office at the church I worked at. Just shot it with the webcam. It's still on the channel. You can still look it up and everything like that. And then Arrow season one. Now you can see me. And like I discovered that was something I was interested in doing, but I worked at a church, and that's just such a very seasonal, high demanding job, and I was in a really bad, like the most unhealthy on pretty much every level I was ever was this kind of window of time from about 2012 to 2016 of just serious, just the stress of life just took a huge toll on me. And so doing the movie reviews was almost like, what's something I can create and get outside of the stress. And that's kind of a recurring theme in my life of movies have always been that escape. So in the middle of this tough time was kind of escaping to those. Jump forward to 2016, all that stress I just mentioned was bad enough that like life imploded. So I literally resigned from the church I was at to seek help to get healthy again. And I didn't have a job from June 2016 until October 2016. So there's this window of time where I'm fully reflecting on life and the choices I've made and trying to figure out how do I get healthy again with a lot of free time. One of the reasons I couldn't stick with it before, free time. What is my escape when life gets stressful? Movies. In the middle of all this, I go on a date night and see Ghostbusters. That's the context, grander context. And it wasn't specific. Like I just kind of did it for a few weeks, just kind of doing it. And I'd done that before. I would do it for 2 weeks, and I'd put out 3, 4 reviews in 2 weeks, and take 6 months off. But now there was nothing to make me busy again. But two things happened that hadn't happened before. I put out a ranking of the Star Trek movies. Star Trek
Okay.
coming again. Star Trek Beyond came out. I put out a ranking of the movies, and it got like 2, 3 thousand views, something like that. Others are getting 10 views, 20 reviews or views or whatever on these reviews, and then this one gets several thousand. Huh. So that reward system that made me, oh, that was cool. And then I did a review of something called Jean-Claude Van Johnson, which was
Hmm.
a Jean-Claude Van Damme Amazon TV show. And they did this pilot system back then where they'd put out one episode and you'd vote on if you wanted to see more. So I put out a review of the first episode because that's all they made, just this pilot. And it got like 10,000 views.
Hmm.
This is all in like my first month while I have free time, and I got enough of that reward where I'd had blogs before or channels, all these different things, and in years of doing blogging, I only had a handful of things that ever got 2,000, 8,000 views. That just
Hmm.
I didn't that 500 be like that's really good 500, and all of a sudden with brand new to this format, and I'd getting 2,000, 8,000. I go, well that desire for my work to be rewarded, that immediate gratification was there in a window of time where I just had this ramp up window of nothing else to do. I throw out 10 resumes. I go to therapy. and then I've got all these hours in the day. And so it's just kind of the perfect storm of being in a window of time where I was trying to reset my life. And there I was with free time and immediate gratification at a regular enough occurrence that made me go, maybe there's something to this. Maybe I'm better at this than I was at writing, at blogging, and maybe this system where it's at right now, it's more likely that I'll have success here. So, like a month into it, I was like, I think I'm going to try and stick with this. And I bought a course on 30 days to grow a better YouTube channel, something like that.
Mm.
Very early on, even when I did not have a lot of money, I was like, I think I'm going to do something. There's something here. Bought a course to try and get best practices so early on. So it was that kind of environment of restarting my life, and then that Star Trek video, that Jean-Claude Van Johnson video that made me go, there might be something to this.
When did you know that you found your groove or found your voice? Because sometimes when we start off with these things, whether it be a blog or a YouTube channel, maybe you're just trying, you're testing different things, you're trepidous, maybe you're trying to mimic someone else you've seen online, you want to try to be like them, what have you, because they did it, maybe it's going to work for you. When did you realize that you're finding your own voice, you're finding your own online personality, and then you went, you know what, this is kind of like my style now. This is what Sean Chandler is all about here. Do you remember around time that worked for you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was about in the one-ish yearish range. Certain senses a little bit before that, and certain senses a little bit after that. But I got to going into 9 months in, and I was thinking about quitting because I was so underemployed. I was delivering paint, so
Hmm.
I started applying for other jobs. And if I'd gotten these jobs, I wouldn't be able to do YouTube as much because these would have been more demanding jobs. But I was also like, what's working, what's not? And I realized if I do a movie review, it gets 100 views or whatever, and if I do a franchise ranking, it gets 500 views. And so you kind of go 100, 500. 500 is more than 100. Let me do more of these things that get more views. And so I kind of pieced that together that for whatever reason, those worked better for me. And I was a little bit better at them than other people, and it cut through a little bit more. So I started doing a couple of those every week, as opposed to just, I decided to do one every week at first, and it worked. And so I went, I'll do two of these. I'll do whatever the new movie franchise is, that there's a new Transformers movie, we'll do a Transformers ranking. And then what's one of my favorite franchises ever? Let's do a Back to the Future ranking. Let's do Indiana Jones ranking. So let's do two every week. And then that worked. So is in that window of time, right around a year of piecing that together of I'm getting a vision for what this looks like, of what am I uniquely good at? I'm better and more willing to talk about these franchises, rewatch these movies, and I can concisely put my thoughts into a package that people seem interested in hearing. So it was kind of that 1 year window of figuring that out.
Just listening with our conversation here and listen to other interviews you've done, analytics is something that's very important to you. You spoke about once how like you made like this 25-page report of your analytics and you're looking at your stuff and you're like really just trying to find the most smallest details of things like what is working, what isn't working here. How important is it for content creators on YouTube or pretty much in any type of platform to really look at data analytics and look at what your demographics are, what's working, who's clicking away, who's coming to try to really kind of not only find, what works numbers wise, but, right there is the code for your success in many ways. It's
Yeah.
right in front of you. You just got to kind of break it down and find. I mean, how important is that in your journey, you find?
Like I would say that was huge in my journey, in like my ride. Like if you ask the question, what did I do to have the success that I had? What did I do to turn a hobby into a career? That was something that I did that changed the format of my entire channel. That was summer 2018 is when I did that project you just talked about. I realized YouTube was going somewhere, so I took like a kind of intensive mentorship program that I paid money for and everything, and had some guidance. And so as part of that, we're doing some of this analytics, and like I really took it seriously, and it transformed my channel. So it's, what did I do to have the success that I had? That's what I did. I wish I did more of that now,
Hmm.
but some of it, like I have enough success, and some of it you have enough intuition that you kind of can just see it and feel it a little bit. I need to do that as like it's something I probably should do annually is do like a real good spend a week doing a deep dive. Let's figure like what's the best for the future of my channel. Um, but it kind of depends on what your actual goals are
Right.
because it's really easy to go down that path and lose everything that you love about this. And I have conversations with people, and as much as I'll say, dive into your analytics, look at your click-through rate, figure out which thumbnails work, and do all that fun stuff, or maybe not so fun stuff, depending on how you're wired. I've
Mhm.
talked with other people, and they're like, it's not about what they actually want, video they actually want to make. It's not about how they want to talk about it. The analytics drive everything. It's kind of like the tail wagging the dog. And you'll burn yourself out if the tail is wagging the dog. If you're just chasing analytics, that's not the way to do it. But if you've got something, you figured out you're passionate about it and it's kind of working, you go, okay, how do I really turn this into like turbocharge the growth? You can dive it like Google, they really are Skynet. They track everything, they know everything, and they share it with you. And their
Mm.
whole algorithm for recommendations, like you click on YouTube, the page comes up, and there's that fraction of a second where there's nothing there, and then it populates it. That's their learning computers, like studying your viewing history and what's performing that day, and trying to do its best guess as to what you're likely to click on. And so they share all that with creators, all everything, every information they have, and if you can merge together that data with your passion and your skills and find the sweet spot between what the data tells you and what you actually want to do and what you're actually good at, you can just grow so quickly. But you don't want to be a slave to the analytics. And so that's the tricky compromise in all of it that you don't want to burn out over dissecting every last like there has to be that humanity to it. There has to you don't want it to just be you don't want to be a bean counter and you can't just be an artist. So how do you merge the two together that has that artistic passion that you have with the practical data that they give you? So like what the big one I do right now is a very high percentage of my videos. I make 5 thumbnails
Mm.
and they have A/B testing. And so then like I'm putting 3 thumbnails in there. So click-through rate is huge. And what do people actually click on? And so that's the big one where like analytics and playing the game. But some of it's because it goes back to what I said. I just like to create things. So like creating 3 thumbnails and figuring out which one people click on the most and going, okay, now this next thumbnail I'm making, what did I learn from the last one? And that kind of iterating process with immediate feedback and this didn't work, this did work. And some of it's just really interesting. And it is analytics, but it has a little bit more of an artistic flair to it with a practical application. This thumbnail won, so we're going to do more like this.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Amazon Prime Video. One of the best on-demand streaming services available, Amazon Prime Video features exclusive Amazon originals as well as popular movies and TV shows. Watch Amazon Prime Video anytime, anywhere. I want to move on to a different game now called Rapid Fire Questions. I'm going to throw some questions to you. Whatever answer comes to your head straight away, hit me with
Rapid
it.
fire. I can't ramble on these ones. Rapid fire. Okay, I'm going to
Rapid
try
fire.
really hard. I'm
So
terrible at this, but let's.
since the new Superman trailer came out, who is your favorite Superman? You can look at TV, you can look at movies, whatever have you. Who's your favorite Superman?
All right, I'm going to go Christopher Reeve. It's the one I grew up with. He invented the genre. He's so good at being so goofy as Clark Kent, and then being so strong and confident as Superman. It's not the glasses that convince you he's two different people. It's the performance. And Henry Cavill didn't get a chance to do that, I don't think, as well. But he just looks like a model with glasses on
Mm,
in the suit. And then even I love the TV show Superman and Lois, but once again, you don't feel like you're looking at two different people, and just the posture, the speech patterns, everything is different about Christopher Lee. He's a Juilliard trained actor
yeah.
that his peers kind of looked down on him because he would do something so mainstream, but he brought that. I was at LA a couple weeks ago for an award show, and they were playing the movies on some channel, and we just sat and watched most of them when we were in the hotel. And he's just so good, even in the bad movies. He's so good.
Yeah, definitely. My favorite too. What's your favorite MCU movie?
I go Infinity War.
Hmm.
Just it's the best one that takes all of my toys and throws them together and plays around with them. It's the dream of, like, if you're gonna do a cinematic universe, that's cinematic universe the movie, and it has those big stakes at the end. So it's so fun to see them all together. It can be really funny, and then it punches you in the gut at the end.
Yeah, I remember going to the premiere of that. It was a fantastic, fantastic film,
My
fantastic
wife
moment. Yeah.
I saw it before my wife. She gave me the worst look when she was in that theater and Peter
Yeah.
Parker died. She's like, she's gonna kill me because I'm
Hmm.
just staring at her, grinning, watching her in agony as Peter Parker dies. It's like, I'm gonna kill you. You made me watch Peter Parker die in Tony Stark's arms. How dare you?
Great, it was great, great moment though. I know you do a lot of cons, a lot of panels. What's your favorite kind of moment that you had from those kind of scenarios? Is there a moment kind of sticks out to you?
I mean, just in any general sense, there's I could take that in many different directions.
Something that really, I don't know, just kind of resonates with you. Maybe an occasion where, wow, I'm here doing this and people want to like talk to me and ask me about my stuff. Is there a moment like that happen?
Yeah, I mean, just in general, when I do Megacon, it's a big one, 200,000 people in Florida. And the Saturdays at Megacon, I'll just sit there for 4 hours with a line of people that want to talk to me. And some of that's because I'll just talk with, as long as someone wants to talk, I'll talk. So the line is long because I don't limit how long you're talking to me. If you wait in line to talk to me, I want to deliver as best I can. If you care enough, that just means the world to me. And so this last year, I did like 7 or 8 hours of meet and greet over 4 days. It's like
Mm,
my voice was shot, I was talking like that by the end of it because I was just talking to everyone, and the fact that people care, they would wait in a line, and that's so cool. And that when we did all of the seats were filled at all of our panels. And it wasn't like we're not in a huge auditorium. There's 50, 60 seats there, and they're filling all those seats, and plus a row of people standing in the back. That's cool that many people would show up for 6 panels that we did and wait in line to talk. That's so cool. Along those same lines, last year we were able to have, or yeah, I guess I don't know, feels like your time all blends together in this post-COVID era. How was that? 2 years ago? Was that 4 years ago? But
mm,
we just had this lineup of people that like John Flickinger was there. That's one of the people that I was watching 10 years ago that inspired me to start. And he was on the panels with us, just hanging out with us all week. Perry Nemiroff was there. That another person I was reading her over 10 years ago on Collider.com, and now she's just a friend of mine. And so, like, kind of being in this setting where I'm recruiting them for my event and they're treating me as a peer, it's just like on a professional level, very fulfilling. But really, on the personal level, this is not a single story. This is a story that happens many times. Every single time I do these meet and greets, is that a kid will come up, 17 years old or whatever, wants to talk about Marvel. They're so excited to talk to me. They snap a picture. The kid steps off, and the mom or dad walks up to me and they say, I just want to thank you for being a role model with your channel that doesn't cuss, which isn't a goal or anything like that. That's just how I talk. But that you'd be a role model and that you'd be so open about your own personal struggles in the past with
mm.
alcohol and addiction. That's it. That we have that struggle in our family too. And the simple fact that you have overcome that and are open about it, um, is means so much to our family. I have heard that same some version of that so many times. I talk with a kid about comic book movies, and then the parent pulls me aside to say, "Just so you know," boom,
Mm.
and that is the unintended positive consequences of having a YouTube channel. That you don't start a YouTube channel to help families heal from trauma. Not one talking about movies, you don't think, but that's what has happened. That's been just a very fulfilling unintended consequence.
Next question. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
That was supposed to be a rapid fire question, wasn't it? I get went on for like 5 minutes on that rapid fire question with like 7 answers and walking through the experience. Pineapple on pizza. Yes, I am. I am a pineapple on pizza person.
Last one. Die Hard. Is it a Christmas movie?
Absolutely. It's about a man trying to get home with his family for the holidays. Takes place on Christmas Eve at a Christmas party, and it is filled with Christmas music. But at the core of it, it's about a man trying to get home to his family on Christmas. That's the actual plot of the movie. That's not a reinterpretation of it. It just happens to also be in the action genre.
In that case, then can Lethal Weapon be considered an action movie as well? I mean, a
I
Christmas
don't
movie as
throw
well?
I don't throw lethal. I need to rewatch. I don't. It's been actually surprisingly long since I've watched Lethal Weapon. Um, I need to rewatch it under that grid, but I don't see Lethal Weapon as a Christmas movie because it's set during Christmas. There's some Christmas music. There's Christmas trees, but the central plot line about the enemies and everything, the goal of the characters, it's not actually Christmas themed. It's not like there is an element of Riggs finding a family, but it's not finding a family for Christmas.
Hmm.
So I'd have to rewatch it to see if I could get, but I don't. My gut reaction is no, that's a movie, action movie set at Christmas. Die Hard is a movie about a man going to a Christmas party trying to get home to his family on Christmas. So I think that's that fundamental difference. There's a Christmas theme, Christmas soaked in Christmas, but it's the genre of action movie.
Last question here for our conversation. I am a Christian, and I rely on my faith a lot of times. Sometimes this whole YouTube kind of grind thing, content creator grind thing, can be really, it can wear you down. You get burnout.
Mhm.
Sometimes you deal with rejection of all sorts of different ways, in a lot of ways. But I have to kind of say to myself, I'm just on the path that that God has me on. I just got to rely on, what Jesus has for me. And I know for yourself, you're a Christian as well. How important was your faith for you in regards to helping you through your journey, your YouTube journey, especially? Because there be a not only a psychological, but it can be a kind of like a spiritual toll in a certain regards as well, because
No.
people talk about things like imposter syndrome. You can talk about the level of stress, anxiety, things like that do come with the game, which people don't tend to kind of think about because while we are on the screen and we look great and we're packaged and all that, there's things that happen behind the scenes. We live a life, we're family men, we live a life,
Yeah.
we live in the real world. And sometimes I know for myself, I have to rely a lot on prayer and my faith and just a belief I'm not on the right path that God wants me to be on. Is that something that's similar in regards to yourself, in regards to how you kind of does your faith kind of help you in that context as well?
Um, I I think there's so much in the world of YouTube that it's very difficult for people outside of the space to fully understand the experience. Um, where most people they look and they would see my channel and where the subscriber count, average views per video of like what for me what's a terribly performing video would be tremendous for them. Even, I said at the beginning of I had a video get 2,000 views and that was life changing. It meant I kept going. Now if a video only got 2,000 views, that's my worst performing video in an entire year.
Hmm.
So, um there's things about it that are very difficult for people to understand that the the psychological nature of some of that, and it's very difficult to discuss the stresses of being a full-time YouTuber that in full-time film critic that don't just sound really stupid and entitled.
Hmm.
like because there's a side to it, like I am so blessed and lucky to get to do what I do for a living. I watch movies for a living, and the idea that I can go to a Comic Con and say, "Hey, I'm going to be here and do a panel," and 30 people would show up that would want to wait in a long line to talk to me, maybe more than that if it's Megacon. That that is like such a blessing in life, but that doesn't mean there aren't hardships. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean that like I'll get dozens of comments a day, people praising me. It doesn't change the fact that that one person insulting me hurts. It doesn't
Hmm.
change the fact that someone that they say something that's exaggerated, but it touches on an area where I'm just a little bit insecure. It doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. And it's difficult to voice some of those things publicly without just sounding so entitled and so whiny and so disconnected. And so it's a space that it's very easy to have burnout, feel lost, get caught in the machine. be totally lose your way. All that to say, I feel so lucky that I didn't have the success that I've had until after I'd gone through real world hardships
Hmm.
of the sanctification process through utterly failing as a person, as a follower of Christ, as a disciple, as a father, as a husband, as a son, really failing on some stuff about a decade ago, and being going through when faced with challenges in life, the stress of life, I failed the test. And that sanctification process of learning and growing, I think, put me in a place where I'm extraordinarily grateful for everything that I have now, perpetually. That's the conversations. What do I talk about with people at Comic Cons? Whatever nerdy thing people want to talk about, we'll talk about it. Whatever advice they want about it, YouTube will talk about it. And then I thank them eternally that they would watch and care about one of my videos, subscribe, care to wait in line, because I'm so grateful that after everything that I put my family through, that I get to do what I do for a living. That happens because these people are there. And that mindset of just gratitude, of thankfulness, and acknowledging if today is the last day I get to do this,
Hmm.
and we go into 2025 and I've got to get a job delivering paint again, uh, God gave me 6 years of talking about movies full time for a living. I got that. And if it's all gone, if the views dry up, I'm okay with all of that. I mean, that's not a, I don't know if it specifically answers your question the way you're talking about it, but I think that there was this growth process and a different perspective on all of it, of this, just everything that I experience in life now just feels like icing on the cake. It's just like wow, it's amazing. I've gotten all of this. I've got a second chance and I'm getting all of this. And if I stop having it, that's okay because I got it for a little while. Um, I think there's a lot of that. And I think the other side to it of you get the hate comments, angry comments. And not that I in any way always respond great to all of that or have the right mindset and attitude. As soon as you come into it from the perspective of everyone is created in the image of God, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. When that's your foundational understanding of everyone you interact with. I forget it all the time and I get worked up. And you said this thing, I fail the test a lot. But when that's your foundational understanding and someone comes at you, it's a lot easier to have grace towards the troll, towards the person that's unreasonably angry with you. It's easier to be gracious towards the person that is difficult. They're overly friendly and want a lot from you. They are a person that has a void in their soul that is the shape of God, and they're maybe trying to fill it with movies or whatever, or with a connection. And that is as a person that even that interaction in some minor way is a ministry to them of showing grace to the troll, showing grace to the overly energetic fan that doesn't realize they're the overly energetic fan, or to the all the vast majority of interactions that are absolutely fantastic and amazing, just wonderful people. Every one of those, if they're a person of faith, they're not a person of faith, there's just one more person that's created in the image of God, in need of a savior. And how can you respond to them with grace and joy? And you usually not overtly, but sometimes overtly, how do you show them Jesus in just the basic interactions? Where how many times I have people say to me like, "Oh, I didn't actually know you were a Christian, but I could tell something was up."
Hmm.
And like that sort of language, it's not uncommon that I hear that. Oh, you were a youth pastor. That makes a lot of sense. And there's just a different flavor if you actually have I don't know, a gracious a gracious worldview, a grace-soaked worldview, and that perspective of humanity. There's a zillion times I have failed the test as myself being a sinner in need of a savior. I've failed that test many times, but um, I think there's many ways. Like people ask me, like, why do you respond to so many DMs? Why do you do this? Why do you do this? Like some of it is I just like to interact with people, and some of it that's just one more way to respect the fact that people care, and it's one more way to, um, I don't know, be gracious in the world and give back, or in even the smallest ways. I shot a, someone sent me a DM just asking me to shoot a happy Merry Christmas little video for their brother.
Mm.
So it's a small little thing, like because I read my DMs, I saw that and I can shoot a video. And actually, as we're saying this right now, I'm remembering I need to grab that and post it and send it over to him before Christmas. Anyway, that's my rambling answer of kind of where I took that.
Well, I just got to say, I'm very thankful that you've taken the time to talk to me today. And I want everyone out there, if you haven't yet, and I don't know why, Sean Chandler Talks About. Watch it on YouTube. I can highly recommend. This is like Sean, your channel really is like an inspiration for me and the work that you're doing it. And it's one of my favorite like channels I watch on YouTube for like movie content. Because not only do I love the way that you can approach your the stuff with passion and a zeal and an energy, but I like the way that you're able to go with the flow of the different trends that happen. Like your shorts game is just fantastic, I think.
Mhm.
And also just the way you do your rankings as well. I think just really fantastic stuff over at Sean Chandler Talks About. I really recommend everyone go to that channel straight away, subscribe. You get some really great movie content there. Like I said in my intro, one of the premier YouTube movie content channels you're going to find. And Sean Chandler, thank you so very much for your time today.
Mhm.
Thank you again yeah, so close to Christmas as well. So Merry Christmas to you and your family and a Happy New Year as well. And yeah, wish you the best of luck for 2025. It's going to be anything like your 2024. And 2025 has got some bangers of movies coming out, which is just
Mhm.
right
Mhm.
up your alley.
With comic book movies being my genre,
Yeah,
2024 did not deliver a lot of movies
no,
that helped me with my main thing. Whereas next year it's like, all right,
yeah.
MCU's back. We're kicking off the DCU. All right, let's do this.
Let's go. Exactly. Thank you so very much for your time today, Sean. It's much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content. Also, if you would like to request a review and support my work, please join my Patreon via the link in the description below.